Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Midwest Mythos. And guys, I got a good one for you today. I was scrounging the deep, dark corners of the internet when I came across this guest. I was watching endless hours of YouTube and, that kind of stuff. So then I started listening to what this guy had to say, and I was like, all right, I'm going to text him right now. And he got back with me right away. But before I get into revealing who that is for our audio listeners, YouTube guys, you can already see this here in the corner. So, I'm hyping this up and you guys already know. But before we get into that, I got to give a shout out to my friends at the Soul Squatch. Even though I ain't got their hat on tonight because my brother stole it last night. Guys, go check them out. Most comfortable hats there is. Like I always say every week, if you're a big melon fella, you a little melon fella, or an average melon fella, go check out their hats. Nice and breathable. I got this big old bump of hair right here. And I'll tell you what, normal hats, they just get my head nice and toasty, man. And, that's nice during the wintertime. But in these hot months, when you're out squatching, or if you're a blue-collar worker and you're allowed to wear a ball cap, and you just know it's just a mess. It's a swamp up in your hat. Check out the Pathfinder from Soul Squatch. It's got that nice mesh, breathable hat. And guys, I'm telling you, I'm not just hyping it up because I'm friends with them. I'm telling you because it's an awesome product. Go check out the Soul Squatch. I'll make sure to put the link down below. Y'all check that out. And without further ado, I got to give a shout out to CW Operations. My boy Drewski. Got to give him some love. I told him I'd give him some love this week. And now, to our guest for this evening, Tim. How you doing tonight, brother?
Hey, good. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on, Riley. Yeah, shout out to Drewski. What's up, Drewski? he's one of my neighbors. He's one of my Tennessee neighbors. So, yeah. But yeah, so you're following, or you fell into a hole in the internet, huh? And you found me.
Yes, sir. I just scrolling. At night, that's how I find people and make connections with people, man. All right, who are my friends and who's going live right now? And just watch. You just so happen to be on the Biblical Hitman. As I was scrolling, I was like, all right, I got to stop and say hi to these guys. Usually I just stop in the chat for a second, say what's good. But then I started hearing you talk, and I just got hooked in. I was like, all right, I'm going to stop listening right now and text this guy and see if he wants to do an episode. So
Yeah.
before we even get into like what you're going to be talking about, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what it is that you do, and where they can find you?
Yeah. My name's Tim Constantine. I have a show called Sixth Sensory Podcast. I spell it out SIX. I'm on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Instagram, and Patreon. And basically, it's a conspiracy show essentially. But I do focus on hidden histories and just all types of mysteries and stuff like that. Like a lot of times, I'll go down these rabbit holes where I'll study the Nazis. And then I came to find that there's a lot of occult influences there. So then I started studying occult Nazis. And now I'm down a rabbit hole where I'm doing like biblical stuff and just hidden history stuff. The nature of the psyop that's been pretty much put over us as a nation here. We've got a lot of history that we're not being told about. So I'm digging into that now. So I kind of bounce around with those type of subjects on my show. And I think on Biblical Hitmen, I was talking about a little bit of both, and maybe I can get into that today. That sounds like something good to talk about. It's like, and by both, I mean like the hidden history of North America and some of the context clues that you wouldn't think would be in the Bible, but are. I could get in. How much of that episode did you listen to, by the way? The Hitman episode?
Dude, I'm telling you, I was enthralled for like 15, 20 minutes, and then I was like, all right, I got to stop because I don't want to sit here and talk. If he replies and says yes, I don't want to know everything that he's going to be talking about. Like, I want to be in shock and awe because, I mean, you already had my gears turning in those like 15, 20 minutes. So.
Okay, well, jump in here, man, and ask me questions or whatever if you want at any point. But like, I guess for an intro here, I'll say this, and I don't think I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did for Biblical Hitmen. So people, and shout out to those guys. I love those guys. I mean, I fully support what that podcast is doing. All three of those dudes are awesome dudes. So go check that out when you're done here, because I'm not going to give you the same episode. I don't think. No, I'm not. I'm going to jump around a little bit. We're going to go into some other stuff here. But basically, I'll start it off like this. The people who run the world, for them, the name of the game is control of knowledge. It has been that. I say has because I think that reality started to change in 2020 because there's a lot of us that are kind of waking up to all this stuff, right? But still, there's a lot of stuff that's hidden from us. I think it's beneath the Vatican, and I think it's beneath the Smithsonian. Like we have, it's like that scene in Indiana Jones. I don't remember which one, but at the end of Indiana Jones, there's a huge warehouse
Mm-hmm.
where all these artifacts and relics and just really interesting stuff, clues to the past, are locked up and like out of sight, out of mind. Nobody even knows they're there in this big warehouse. That's a real thing, and that gets into like movies. Like, dude, I know you've probably picked up on this because I know you delve into conspiracy too. It's like some of these movies are telling us stuff.
Oh,
They're
110%.
yeah, they're showing us things, little glimpses of the behind the scenes world, as I like to call it. And Indiana Jones is one of them. It's full of that kind of stuff. So, and I think the Smithsonian is like it's every bit of the conspiracy that conspiracy theorists before me have said it is. Because when I started podcasting, I was like, giants? Nah, that didn't exist. I'm like, Smithsonian? They're not. There's no way. It's just a magazine about the ancient past. They're not doing anything wrong. Once I started researching it, I realized, oh, this is a cover up for sure. So I'm trying to like put together the pieces of all this stuff so we can know our true history. So yeah, I mean, basically, I studied the stuff they don't want us to know, man. Whether it's left out of seminary regarding the Bible or left out of American history in general. That's what I study. So I'll jump into some of that tonight. I could talk about this stuff all night. So
Oh yeah, man. I was about to say, man. It sounds like we're cut from the same cloth, man. I remember, because I'm fairly young. I can say I was in high school 7 8 years ago, and I just remember getting in trouble because all these conspiracy podcasts and all that stuff started coming out. That's when I started getting hooked and really starting looking into these alternate histories. And when I'd have to do reports for a history class and stuff like that, the teacher would choose a topic and I would start, hey, what about this? Or, hey, the Nazis were actually using witchcraft and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, no, you're not doing that. This is not in the history books. You're blowing smoke. I don't know what you're smoking, Riley, but you're not doing that kind of stuff. And I was like, but that's the real history. He's like,
it's the real history.
he's
It
like,
is.
I'm gonna say it is, but for school reasons and if people talk, I'm not gonna let you do this, man, for your own good. And I was like, all right, man.
All the kids who got clued into this stuff and put it in reports, they always get slapped on the wrist. They always get some sort of like, don't talk about it lingo, right? And like just that whole Nazis using witchcraft thing. I've talked about that a lot in the past. I won't go there tonight, but there is something to that. And I've gotten a ton of pushback from that too, from people on the out there in the interwebs. There's a lot of people who don't think they think that that's ridiculous. Um, that some of these Nazis were occultists, and like I've found stuff where I can basically, I feel like I can present a very good case that they were, and like in fact, like even like guys like Alfred Rosenberg and Heinrich Himmler, Rudolf Hess. Those are
Mm-hmm.
some really really big names in the Third Reich. Those guys were open occultists. So there is something to this, and I'll cap it off with the Nazis with that because I don't want to. You don't want to suck me down that rabbit hole, but it's
Another
just
day.
one of many, man. It's just one of many conspiracies. So yeah, I mean, my thing right now that I'm looking at is like I said, I didn't think giants were real. No, I didn't. I knew about uh, the Bible, but I thought that there was just one or two instances of giants in the Bible, like Goliath. I knew about that from my Sunday school.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, I didn't think that it was really a thing until I started looking into the history of the mounds over here. And, they were pulling out giants out of these mounds. So I got sucked into that. And then what I did was on my show, I've had two guys on at this point who each one has found 800 old news articles that deal with people on farms, people across the country who are digging up giants. And all these little small town newspapers were reporting on it. But two different guys who had 800 articles each that they had compiled. That's when I go, okay, maybe there's something to this. I think there were giant tribes over here before Columbus, and also I think they knew about. I think a lot of them were from the Middle East originally, just like the Bible says, and
Mm-hmm.
those Middle Eastern giants like Ishbi-Benob or the one from Gath that had like 6 feet or six toes, 6 fingers. Those guys and like their tribe knew about faraway lands where there were copper mines, aka Michigan.
Oh, you speaking my language now. Michigan copper mines. You got me hook, line, and sinker,
Yeah,
brother.
you told me before we hit record that you're from that area, Michigan, right? You said you were from there originally, right?
Yep, I've lived as far south as you can get in Michigan to pretty much as up in the UP, man. So,
Yeah.
uh,
So Gary Wayne does a really good job. I kind of like forgot a couple of the Giants' names there, but Gary Wayne does a really good job of like listing the tribes, like the Rephaim, the Zizaim, I think is one. There's a lot of others, but basically they knew about these copper mines over here, and there was the number I looked it up the other day. The number I saw was there's 500,000 tons of copper missing from Lake Michigan. That was mined a long time ago. And like, if people want to get real specific and look into this, you could just look at Isle Royale. That's an island up there. That's where all that copper is missing. What they would do was they would go up the Mississippi. They'd come down. I think what they would do is they'd come down from like this northern part of Western Africa, where you got like Spain right there and the Canary Islands right there.
mhm.
They jump off this point of Africa and hit a natural stream and sail right up into here. And they'd end up over here and they end up in the Gulf. And then from there, they'd go up the Mississippi and they'd go up through Memphis, Tennessee, right? That's a weird Egyptian name, right? Then they'd go up through St. Louis, where there's an ancient city called Cahokia, where there were pyramids. Then they'd go up through Cairo, right? Another weird Egyptian name, right?
Right.
And who named these? Who named these cities? Was it them? Were the Egyptians coming over here with them as well? And that's where we get these town names. Then they jump on the Ohio and they shoot over to Pittsburgh, another ancient city, where these giants were living. They're called the Alajiwi giants. I found 3 records, good reliable records that the Alajiwi giants were real. And they settled in that region where Pittsburgh is today. So, but it was these roadways, or actually these rivers that became roadways. That's how they'd get here. Or what they would do is, instead of branching off on the Ohio, they'd stay on the Mississippi and they would go up into Michigan and Chicago, because they knew a way. There's not a way to do it today, I don't think, unless the water's really high. But they knew a cut through. They knew how to get from the Mississippi to Lake Michigan, and it was right there near Chicago,
Yeah.
where there was actually a Wabanzi stone found. Like if you look up like downtown Chicago, and I think it's the I think maybe it's called the Chicago River. You're going to see like these big, downtown Chicago, huge buildings, and then there's a river winding through there. Well, right there, those big buildings used to not be there, and I do think there was a civilization there, though. But what they had was a stone called the Wabanzi stone. It's in private hands today, and it was an altar. It
Dude.
had a little indentation at the top of it for them to put something in the altar to offer to their gods, because they wanted safe passage. They were leaving Lake Michigan and they wanted safe passage back down through the Mississippi.
Let me ask you one question. Because you, like, I know you can see my expressions and stuff like that. Would you happen to know if Pan is one of these gods that they were,
Yeah,
lowercase g gods that they were doing stuff to?
yeah. There's something to that. I think there was a hierarchy of little g gods. There's like a panel, if you will.
Hmm.
And I do think for some of these folks, Pan was on that. And I'll tell you why, because one of the hottest, most occultic regions over in the Middle East is an area called Mount Hermon.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
talked about in Enoch. It's talked about in Genesis 6. This is the location where these star people, these watchers, come down to Earth. They offer the men of Earth a deal. They say, "We want your daughters. We're going to give you technology." That's Mount Hermon. That's where the Nephilim come from, because the star people, watchers, they mate with these guys' daughters and they create giants. That's one of the origin stories for these giants in the first place. So I'm glad we got that out of the way. And but that whole area is very, very steeped in sorcery. And one of the things you find right there on the base of Mount Hermon is the Grotto to Pan. So
Man.
yeah, I think Pan was a part of this, brother.
All right. We're gonna have to. This is the stuff that I'm thinking about right now. It's not ready for the show yet. I'm gonna talk to you about it on the side, but a little tidbit thing that just to not leave people hanging. Go, everybody, after you finish this, after you go check out his podcast, guys, go listen to my Throwback Thursday for this week. Biblical time travel and portals. My buddy Michael that came on talks about how he was an allegiance to Pan, not too far away from where Tim is talking about. 60 miles if the crow flies. And Michael is not the only one in this area that did. So just go listen to that, and maybe you guys can start putting together what's going on in my head right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, there's I think a lot of these old gods were almost like transplants, where they were brought over here by these groups of traveling people, because this copper mine thing, basically what it did was it created a hub of commerce over here,
yeah,
and this fueled the Bronze Age over there.
see that's what I was thinking about when you initially said something, because I never really thought about it, but thinking about it, over in Greece and all this, there, as far as I know, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. There is no massive copper deposits to be able to make their brass and stuff like that. And they're bronze. Well, they had
So
brass,
that's
brass and copper for bronze.
it's not as pure either over there.
Mm-hmm.
Like the copper here has a very distinct signature to it. It's very pure. That's how we know that copper from Michigan made it over to the Middle East, because they can test the copper and they can see that it came from the Lake Michigan area. It's just that pure. Um, but that commerce hub, I think people were building cities over here along our waterways. And I would say this is probably another topic for another time, but a lot of our cities were built right on top of the older cities that were already here. And that's another way I think our history's been hidden from us, because you go to Wikipedia and you look at Chicago, and I don't remember the exact date, but basically they say Chicago was put in like 1750 or something like that by I think they say it's an African American guy who founded the city in 1750s, whatever. Well, it goes back further than that. Um, because of we look at these artifacts like this Wabanzi stone, and we could tell there were people in the area, and they probably set up shop there to to fuel their industry, right? So it's not just Chicago. There's a lot of cities over here, and I could go down this rabbit hole, and I'll try to keep it short. But like I've got a lot of newspaper articles that deal with Nashville, that talk about how there was an ancient civilization here, much older than they say Nashville is. So Cincinnati's another one. I've looked into that one. It was an older city, right? Columbus, Ohio, same deal. All older cities, but yeah, man, they were Canaanite Phoenicians. They had sea routes. I think they knew that you could pick a tributary off the Mississippi and basically go get lost, start a settlement, find a place to hide out, find a place to worship your gods. And then some of these people are also mound builders. So what do we find in the mounds? Well, we find weird things that look kind of druid, look kind of pan like. I have an article about was it maybe I think it was Cincinnati. In the Cincinnati area, they pulled a giant out of a mound and they said he had been adorned with antlers. And that's very, some would say that's pan like. I would say that's also very Cernunnos like. So there's a lot of threads there with the pan thing, I think, to look into. But and I think one of the things that was going on here that I kind of pieced together from some of the books I've read is it seems like the ancient people coming over here knew that the natives were nice as well. I think they were more prone to settle North America because the natives were nice. I've got an old book where it talks about how when this is after the giants, but when the Spanish came, kind of around the Columbus time, the Spanish would go to Georgia and they would land in a place called Frederica, Georgia. It's another ancient city. It's left out of our history books. They would stop in Frederica and they would travel up into Appalachia, looking for ancient civilizations. All these ancient cities were rumored to be here, so they were looking for them. But all along the way, the North American natives are taking them in. They're feeding them. They're treating them like friends, right? In South America, in a lot of the books I've read, the story's a little different. There's a book I read called Spanish Conquest or Discovery and Conquest of Mexico, but it also talks about South America as a whole because they had to pass through South America kind of to get to Mexico. And they everywhere they would stop off the coast of South America, they'd get shot at, they get arrows, they'd get spears thrown at them. They just attacked in general off the coastlines of South America. And they said the shamans would come out, and the shamans were crazy looking dudes with blood in their hair. The shamans constantly had blood in their hair, so their hair was matted with blood, like one big dreadlock. And but the point here is that there seemed to be a dichotomy, right, between North America and South America and how the cultures were. So I think the ancient people coming over here were like, we could look for gold in South America and we'd have to battle our way to it. Or we could just go get the copper out of North America and get fed in the process.
Yeah.
And the Phoenicians also had maps of the trade routes to get here in the first place. So what I just described, those are stories from the Spanish who came after the giants, kind of after Columbus. Where did Columbus and the Spanish get those maps, right? The Templars had the Phoenician maps. And, just for people listening, like I can show you how I think the Phoenicians were here. There are several things to go through with that, but like, I'll just put this one out there on the table right now. West Virginia. There was a mound in West Virginia where they found a tablet that had Iberian Phoenician on it. So the Phoenicians were definitely here, and Phoenicians are part of the Canaanites. So that's why I go back to the Bible in the first place. And that's how I think Columbus got here in the first place, because the Templars inherited these ancient maps from the Phoenicians. And what happened was there was a branch of the Templars that changed their name to the Portuguese Order of Christ. Columbus kind of married into that Templar family, although they had changed their name to the Order of Christ. And that's how he knew to come over here. That's why he flew a Templar cross on his ships, because it was the Order of Christ who were Templars in the first place. And so, this was an old trade route Columbus got from the Templars, who got from the Phoenicians, meaning there were definitely people here in large number way before Columbus, and they were definitely in Michigan.
Man, boom. Man, that's
But
insane.
there's rumors of all this wealth being over here too. So I think this copper trade really helped the economy of what cities were over here, because the Spanish, like I said, they were coming over here looking for cities, looking for riches, um, and they clearly the Spanish secret societies had records of the Phoenicians and Egyptians coming over here and establishing cities in the first place. So I'm gonna throw Egyptians in that too, because I do think that's how you get some of these crazy names like um, Cairo, you know,
Yeah.
Memphis. Like there's a place in Kentucky called Mummies, Kentucky. There's an Egypt, Kentucky. So this whole Ohio River Valley area, if we're talking like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, all the names of the little towns in the region are all, or many of them are like Middle Eastern
Hmm.
or North African or whatever, what have you. You look like you wanted to say something, so I'm gonna stop for a second.
Oh, you're all good. It was just gonna be a little like side tangent. So, you mentioned Memphis quite a few times, and we know the eighth largest pyramid, or is it seventh? Seventh or eighth largest pyramid in the world's there right now.
Mm-hmm.
The legendary Bass Pro Pyramid. Yeah,
Yeah.
you think just a quick thought. You think that was placed there for a reason? Because I mean, I went there. I took the whole tour, and the creator was just like, if I catch a big old catfish right here, this is where I'm going to build the biggest Bass Pro in the world, and it's going to be a pyramid. But I don't think I think there was plans way more than just, oh yeah, I just want to have a pyramid to look at
Mm.
cool. Like, have you
Well,
ever?
I do think that there's some reason. So there was a. So I'll throw this at you. There was a pyramid in Nashville. It was. I've got pictures of it. It
Oh,
was torn down, an actual pyramid. Like it is. It was torn down in the early 1900s, and it sat right next to the Parthenon, which is still here. So why do we have a Greek Parthenon, and why did we have an Egyptian pyramid here in the first place? Well, I think it's because they were pulling these relics out of the ground that are locked up in the Smithsonian right now. But these relics were Egyptian. Some of them were Greek. There were, even the Romans were coming over here. So to answer your question, I think that so many Egyptian relics were found here in the 1700s and 1800s that that's how it got the name Memphis, or unless it was already called Memphis and they just kept the name. But I think a lot of this Egyptian lore that we see like lingering in the cities go back to a time where people were building the cities, and in doing so they're actually digging up relics that were Egyptian in nature, had hieroglyphics and stuff like that. So yeah, there's something to it, man. It goes back to the stuff that they found here, I think.
all right.
um
I
yeah.
figured I'd just pick your brain on it.
Yeah. No, that's part of the story too, man. I mean, there's all kinds of fun stuff that was found over here that's just not talked about. Like a good book on that is America BC by Barry Fell. It goes through and it shows you all of all this crazy stuff. Like there's a tribe up there in New England. There was a tribe of Native Americans. I'm trying to remember what they called themselves. Uh, I'm blanking on the name, but anyway, it's in this book and it shows their language, and it shows their language in a diagram right next to Egyptian hieroglyphs, and their language, their writing, it looks just like the Egyptian. It mirrors it. It's like it is Egyptian. Some of the characters are actually Egyptian. So what, how does that happen, right? Like, well, Egyptians were over here at some point.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
mean, but like that's that's less hard for me to believe. What was harder for me to believe was the giant part.
mhm.
Um, but I just think like that's a good place. to fit the Bible into this because they were Canaanite Phoenicians and they had giants in their midst, and that's echoed in the Bible. There's a genealogist I came across named Donald Yates, and he in his work he talks about a race of giants who had mining technology, who ended up over here, but also in the American West. In fact, they ended up dominating the American West because they had strongholds all over the country. They set up shop here. They knew how to mine, and they were giants. And some of them were like white giants too. And because if you go back and you look at the Canaanites, they weren't. Some of the Canaanites seem to be white. They seem to have uh, blonde hair and blue eyes and stuff like that, even though they were from the Middle East. I mean, it's wild stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But even some of the Canaanites, like descendants who ended up moving to the Canary Islands, called the Guanches, they had really light skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes. So there was the Canaanites had some sort of a Caucasian gene, I guess is what I'll call it. So there were white giants over here too, apparently. And I get pushback from that sometimes, but the Native Americans themselves say there were white giants over here. That's in the tribal lore. So it's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, in one thing too that we hear about with giants all the time, even, well, the big example one, the Kandahar giants, they got red hair. I have never met brown, black, Asian, anybody with red hair that is not Caucasian white. I've seen it dyed, but like natural red, orange hair, that's only found in white people. Somebody, genealogist, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but
It's typically found in the white people, tribe of Dan people, if you want to go far enough back. And there is in Afghanistan, some of the tribal Afghanistan people over there have that gene, though. They do have the red hair, but you don't see that as much spread out throughout the world. There's like a little pocket in Afghanistan where the people over there, they look Afghanistani, but they do have the red hair. But for the most part, I would agree with you that it's mainly a white people thing. I'm sure there's people in the comments who know somebody who's not white who has red hair, so I don't want to exclude those people either. But predominantly, right?
Right. Yeah, we're going off the statistics right here.
Yeah.
99.5.
Right. But it's like it was a trait that some of these giants had in like the Lenape Delaware tribe. So you remember that Alajibi I was telling you about who settled in that Pittsburgh area?
Mm-hmm.
The Lenape Delaware said that those were giants and that they actually built Serpent Mound too up in Ohio. But they said that they were 7 to 9 feet tall, redheaded, and had 6 digits. So like 6 fingers or 6 toes. And I'm like, okay, this is where I bring the Bible back into this, right? Because where have I heard that before? 2 Samuel, where you have 6-toed, 6-fingered giant from Gath, And we also see petroglyphs here in Tennessee and elsewhere in North America, but here in Tennessee, where you'll see that somebody has carved or drawn a 6-toed giant footprint on a rock wall, right? The natives, if you ask them, in a lot of their lore, they believed that the giants were products of the star people mating with the natives. Where have I heard that before? Genesis 6, right? We covered that in a minute. Chief Riverwind has a big spear that he found in one of the Great Lakes up here. It might have been Lake Michigan. In fact, our mutual friend, Doc Brown, he sent me a picture of himself holding the spear. So it's an epic photo. I have it saved in my gallery. It's Doc. He's holding this giant spear that Chief Riverwind found. A normal man could not use this spear. It was made for somebody massive. Joseph Riverwind tests the material, and even though it was found here, it tested as being made in Turkey, Judea, Middle East area. So how did it get over here? And who was using it? Definitely a giant. Definitely somebody from the Middle East. it would seem, right?
Yeah.
So, and where have I heard that before? Definitely 2 Samuel 21. Ishbi Benov says his spear, he was a giant, his spear weighed 300 shekels. He had a big old spear. He's a giant from the Middle East. It all lines up, right?
Right.
And even, Serpent Mound, that was a big context clue for me, man. When I found out that the Delaware Lenape said that the Giants built Serpent Mound, that was huge for me, because Serpent Mound, some of the dates I've seen for that corresponds to the time period when a lot of these groups, these giants, were being driven out of Canaan, the land of Canaan, by Joshua and Caleb. So if they knew that they were being hunted down, and there was almost like an edict put out by God that Joshua and Caleb were following to hunt down this bloodline, because it wasn't human, because they were giants, they were hybrid humans, right?
Right.
So the DNA was all messed up. It wasn't natural. So there was almost like there was an edict out for their removal. And I think a lot of them, since they were involved with the copper trade over here, they already knew about North America. And I think this was a perfect place for them to come, because, like I said, they knew you could hop on that Mississippi and take a crazy right, take a crazy left down one of the tributaries, get lost, and hide out. So, and I just think I didn't start this research with a Bible, with my Bible open, but I ended up there because I started to see all the connections, between North America and the Middle East. So,
Ain't that
and I
funny?
mean, yeah, man, yeah, their beliefs are talked about in there too, and I can get to that later, because I mean, that when you start looking into their belief system, that's when you start to see, okay, yeah, like the Pan stuff, or other gods, basically, like goddesses as well. Goddess worship was really big with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, real quick,
Yeah.
you keep on mentioning these like tributaries and stuff. You could take the hard
Hmm.
left. You could take the hard right. Well, so they're coming in through Louisiana. All right. Something that I keep on hearing about, and I've been hearing about for the last couple of years. Obviously, if you're on social media and stuff like that, you're hearing about people seeing giants out in the Smoky Mountains. Uh, you know, other side of the Midwest. Uh, they're up there. People are finding them. But another place that people have been talking about seeing giants is down in the bayou, like remote bayou down in Louisiana, and that makes your what you're talking about right now. Like, I always kind of question, like, oh man, I don't know about giants being down in the bayou. Like, why would they go there? Well, if that with what you're saying, if that's where they came in, it makes perfect sense why they'd be there. And I mean, if anybody's ever looked at a picture of these deep bayous and stuff down there, they're not very hospitable. You don't want to build
Hmm.
a house or something like that. But giants, man, they can get around there fine. They ain't scared of no caiman. They ain't scared of no crocodile, alligator.
Right. Yeah, they can walk right through there, not worry. So the giants that we're talking about, I think, were literally so big that they wouldn't be necessarily worried about an alligator. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Dark Waters?
Yes, actually, he's the dude that was popping through my head, and
Hmm.
as I was saying that, because I think he's mentioned it before. He's definitely mentioned it before. And then,
Yeah, he's got a story, and I'm going to paraphrase here. I don't remember it perfectly, but he might have a couple stories actually. But one of the stories was a guy who was out there on a riverboat. I think one of the boats that's got the big old fan behind it,
yep,
where they, and he was in there, and he said one popped out and looked at him. Not and there was more to it. I think that there was maybe some stuff thrown or whatever, but he got a good look of one in there, a giant. So there's as crazy as this sounds, you know, I would have never said this 2 years ago, but yeah, it's very possible that there was a remnant population of giants hiding out in certain pockets of the country, including the bayou. In fact, if you read the Epic of Esau by Doc Brown, um, you might see that some of these giants sort of adapted to the wilderness, right, and became what we call feral.
mm-hmm.
And that's an explanation, a possible explanation for Bigfoot.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah. me and Doc have had nice little bass right there. uh, quite a few conversations about them going feral and stuff like that,
mhm.
especially when we're talking about that kind of stuff when you're in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains in the middle of nowhere, talking about that stuff. You tend to listen to the details a little bit more and like really, like, dang, that's this is probably real. Yeah, your theory is
Hey,
probably
hey,
right.
man, I had something walk up on me one time in the Cherokee National Forest up there. It was like 2013. I was in there. I went on a guy I worked with had a cabin, still has a cabin, and it's in the national forest because the cabin was in his family way back. So like they actually built the they established the national forest around this guy's property. So it's tucked away in there. It's in a holler of a holler, like it's back there, right? And I was in there with this group of guys I work with, and the first night I went in, they all stayed in this cabin because it was a big cabin. They had refurbished it and made it 2-story and everything. Um, Pretty much off grid though, other than that. But it's in this little valley in between mountains. There's only one way in and one way out. But there's a nice valley down there where you can, with a pond and a lot of space. So I took off the first night. I'm like, I'm sleeping out under the stars tonight. Like, I'm not staying in this cabin. And I don't know why I did that. I questioned myself all the time. I didn't know then what I know now about what's out there in the woods. But anyway, um, when I got to a point where I was going to turn off and go up, so I walked, I don't know, a football field away from this cabin. I turned around and looked back, and I could see sun's going down, the lights are on. I could see the porch. I could tell nobody has followed me. Right. I turned around and looked. Nobody was following me. And then I went around a corner and I was out of sight of the cabin. And that's when I decided to kind of go up into the woods and make my bed for the night. As soon as I got in my sleeping bag, I heard something big, loud footprints walking right up to me. And like I almost said, I literally almost spoke. I almost said, I hear you, because I thought it was one of the guys. Right before I said, I hear you, I stopped myself. Because it hit me, right as I was about to speak, it hit me that that's not somebody from my group. The way this thing was walking up on me, it was coming down the mountain through thick woods. Somebody from my group, if they were going to try to sneak up on me and play a prank or something like that, they wouldn't have been able to get to me that fast through the woods, and they wouldn't have come down the mountain either to do it. So that was weird for me, man. And it walked right up to my sleeping bag and it stopped. And I was sleeping on my side, right? So I'm facing this way, and it walked up behind me. So I didn't turn around and look at it. I basically just grabbed my Glock. I had my Glock with me. I pulled it out of the holster, and I just had my Glock right here on my chest. So, because at the time, I thought it was, I don't know why I thought this, but at the time I thought it was a big cat. And I was thinking, I'm like, this thing's going to have to get me out of the sleeping bag. So as it's doing that, I'm just going to pop it. I'm going to unload on it. But it's going to have to get through the sleeping bag first to get me. So I sat there. I fell asleep waiting for this thing to attack me. And for some reason, I felt at ease about it too. I wasn't super worried about it because I was like, whatever this is stopped. It's not attacking. It's just standing over me. And so I don't think it was a big cat now. I think it sounded like a human being walking, but heavy.
It,
The next day, there was like 7 or 8 of us guys on this trip, right? And one of the guys was the guy who owned the cabin, and One of the guys was a guy who was really close with him, who went up there a lot with him. So I talked to the guy who was up here at this cabin a lot, who was best friends with that guy who owned it. And I'm like, I told him what happened. I'm like, hey, don't tell, because the guy who owned the cabin was trying to stop me. I left this part out. He was trying to get me not to go out there and sleep. And I was like, oh no, it's fine. He's like, no, don't do it. I finally said, I'm doing it. He's like, okay, whatever. But he tried to talk me out of it. So I told my buddy, I'm like, hey, don't tell him this, because he tried to stop me and all that. I told him the story, and that's when he said that they had seen a big giant figure standing up behind the foliage behind the pond watching them a couple times. And I was like, what do you think it was? And he wouldn't say. He was like, it's something big. It wasn't a man. He kept saying that. He's like, it wasn't a man, it's something big. I'm like, what was it? He wouldn't use the word, man. He wouldn't say Bigfoot. He wouldn't say Sasquatch, but I knew exactly that's what he was getting at. I could tell. It took me a minute, but finally I'm like, oh, he's talking about Bigfoot. That's what he thinks this was. And a couple of years later, I came to terms with it. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, man. Well, dude,
I may have just derailed this entire episode
dude,
with a Bigfoot encounter.
You're good. I'm glad you brought it up too. I love hearing people's encounters, even if when they're side tangent. Because, but dude, as I don't know if Doc told you about it or if you've seen like his trailers for his up and coming documentary Operation Smoke, but we went out to an undisclosed location out in the middle of Appalachia. It was Northeast Tennessee, but like I'm talking, I got coordinates to get there.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. It wasn't a here. No, it was a pin. And when we were out there, I had lots and lots of stuff happen, and I got blasted by infrasound and stuff like that. But the scariest thing that happened when I was out there, man, it was pitch dark, just laying in this little nook right next to a creek down in this valley. All around us is mountains, and I heard them steps too. And in the creek, running up on the ridge right above us, and then in the 10 feet in front of us in the creek, and I don't know what it is, man. Like the footstep, like I heard calls, I heard whoops, I heard crazy owl, but them footsteps, man, how heavy they sound, like I don't know, I don't know about you, but like when I think about how heavy those footsteps are and how close they were to me, it's scary, man. Like I don't know anything that, like, even a bear, man, I don't think could make footsteps that loud.
Yeah, I know, man. I mean, the footsteps I heard was this. It was trying to quietly approach me. I think I was in between it and the pond.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think it was watching me anyway. I think these things, they're really tuned into us when we are in their area. So it was watching me anyway, and I was in between it and its pond, and that's probably why it wanted to walk right up on me. And another thing is the Appalachian Trail was not far from this location. Now, this was not somebody from the Appalachian Trail. I wasn't that close, but as far as proximity goes, the trail is not that far. So I think these things are just used to walking up on people sleeping on that trail anyway and looking for, I don't know, a candy bar or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably walking up on people all the time through there. So this was just another night for it. And I don't know, man, like, but back to the footprints, the footsteps, it was like, it was too clumsy to be a human, because one of the boys could have snuck up on me easier and not made all that noise.
Yeah.
I think this thing is just so big, that's as quiet as it could be. in that terrain. I don't know that for sure, but it wasn't like deep thuds, right? But it was like light thuds, like it was trying to sneak up on me or whatever. But yeah, man. I mean, and it's like your location you're talking about. By the way, I'm looking forward to seeing that documentary for sure, man. That sounds good. That sounds good. But like, this is a similar thing. I think that what we're talking about here, it's like, because this was for me, mine was right there on the Tennessee North Carolina border, in a very remote location, very remote, and like you said, man, it was right down in the middle of the mountain. Sounds like we were in a very similar type of environment.
Yeah, man. Like forest so dense, like you can hardly see
Oh,
through it. You got
oh,
the
that's
laurels and everything.
the laurels were. This was in the middle of summer, so you know it was lush. We were on our way into this because it was a long winding road in between a holler to get to this cabin. Um, and it was we were making Jurassic Park jokes the whole way in because it looks just like Jurassic Park in there,
Mm-hmm.
like a jungle.
Man.
And I mean that region is a rainforest technically.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah, man, I'm looking forward to seeing that. But yeah, and I'll say this, like, if people want more information on this, like, I know I took it from the giants to Bigfoot, and I wasn't necessarily trying to make that connection today, but um, if people want more information on that, get that Epic of Esau by Doc Brown, order that, and while you're at it, go and check out a um, a podcast I just dropped with Travis Carpenter. It's called what did I call it? Nephilim in Tennessee is what I called it. And he'll fill in a lot of gaps for people too. If anybody's curious about this Nephilim Bigfoot connection, I would say check those two things out. And I never plug my own episodes like this, but I kind of have to because
do it, brother.
Travis Carpenter, man, he's the man, brother.
I'll tell you
So
what. Send after this or sometime this weekend. Send me the link to the
okay,
episode, and I'll slap it down in the bio, man. I
yeah, cool,
I
man.
don't care about plugs and stuff like that. People,
Yeah,
if
okay,
if you
yeah.
if you got something to share it, man. I ain't gatekeeping on my show, man. I'm
Love it,
all
man.
I don't I don't care about the fiscal, monetary, who comes, who leaves kind of stuff, man. Like I'm here to put
Love it.
I'm here to put the puzzle pieces together, and obviously we're doing that kind of stuff right now, man.
Well, that's what this is about, man. That's why I'm so excited about this new batch of podcasters right now. Like some of us young bloods, I've not been in it that long, man. I'm just a little over. I'm over a year. I'm not 2 years into it yet.
Yeah, I'm a
Um,
year and 2 months here.
are you?
Yeah, so
Yeah, we're very close, I think. So that's what I'm excited about. Like, there's a couple of us I've noticed. Steven is another one from Biblical Hitman because
hmm
I talk to him quite a bit. Like, that's what it is, man. We're just trying to put the pieces together.
yeah,
We're not coming in here with our biases and our preconceived notions. Like, we're putting ideas on the table, and let's just see what happens. That's what this is about. I'm so grateful to be on shows like yours and be around people like yourself who are doing that. It's like nice to be around it, man. It's like, yeah, I think that's what this needs right now. This whole arena that we're in. We need that breath of fresh air right now where we're not coming in here and trying to tell people what's what. We're just looking at the evidence, right?
exactly. And I like because I talked about doing my podcast for years. Like my buddy Shane Jones from Inquiries of Our Reality. Me and him, we've been friends for years, and he's been telling me since the day I met him, Riley, start a podcast, and I was like, yeah, I know, and it just never happened. Like whether it be financially, I wasn't able to get the stuff that started up, or I had a house with no internet for 2 years in my in my early 20s. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. But it,
It might be
it,
better off for not having internet there for a little bit,
yeah,
clear your head a little bit.
like I had my phone, but there's only so much you could do on your phone, and I didn't have great signal, so like I could maybe get a YouTube video or two a night, but I when I got married, moved to Indiana, got real good internet, and my wife was like, "Start it," and like I just felt God wanted me to start it at the time that I did, and I had lots of confirmation and stuff of, all right, Riley, this is when you're supposed to do it. If you would have did it earlier, you would not be on the same path, because like I had to meet the people that I met, had the experiences I had to have before I even recorded my first episode, so that it can go in God's God's plan, and just the puzzle pieces come into place at the right time. Because I'll tell you what, 95% of my episodes are like what's happening tonight. We say we're gonna, there's gonna be a topic, then we get off on these side tangents, and this is where the puzzle pieces start falling in. Yes, and like the already plan, there's puzzle pieces like we had at the beginning, but it's these side conversations like that's like, oh wow, here's the glue,
Mm.
everything. And
Yeah.
it's cool knowing that there's other shows like mine that are cool with that. Everything doesn't have to be on a schedule. Everything doesn't have to be, oh, just this has to happen at this second. I'm going to edit 50% of the episode out so it fits the narrative I want. I don't care
Yeah.
about that stuff. I can tell you
Uh,
don't care about that kind of stuff either, man. You just
no,
want
I don't, man. I love bouncing ideas off of. I like approaching the shows with like a topic kind of loosely in mind,
to.
so it's something to talk about or whatever. And that's why, like, you told me you saw me on Biblical Hitman, so I was like, oh, maybe I'll talk about some of that and we'll see what happens. So that's kind of how I came into this. But like, I love bouncing this stuff off of other podcasters like yourself, because I would have never thought about that Giants in the Bayou account, some of the stuff Dark Waters has compiled. I would have never thought about that in relation to some of this research. So this adds new. This is adding some new spice to the cauldron for me, man. You
It's
know.
same thing with the stone in Chicago coming from you, man. I'm like, you just took. I've been at a roadblock in this research that I've been doing, and that was you kicking over the do not enter sign, and it's
Hey,
we're back on the roll.
I'll tell you something, man. If you want, just we can talk about it on Messenger. I'll send you what that is, because you'll definitely want to get a good look at this thing and look at it. And it's a big stone, huge. It's like a boulder almost, and it's got a face carved in it, and it's a face that is very what's very distinct, because there's a lot of other altars over in the Middle East that have that same face on it, and it looks like a guy with his eyes closed. It looks kind of like a giant with like its eyes closed. You'll see what I'm talking about. That's on the stone, and that's an indicator that it was used as an altar for sacrifices. Not to mention, it's got the indentation on the top. And I mean, this is dark, but the indentation is perfect size for an infant to
Yeah,
fit in. And these people were, if you look at Canaanites, they were doing the child sacrifice thing. So and I'll show you if I can find it. I'll send you another one, man. There's a stone looks just like the Wabanzi stone that's in Florida, and it's right next to a bar, and
I
the bar has built their patio around it.
I know that one. All right, so
Okay, so
I
tell
am
me what
familiar
that
with.
is again, if you remember, because I don't remember. They call it something like the uh, Indian miracle stone. They have some weird name for it.
Yeah, and I can't remember too much about it. I just know people like to come up and like, you know, stones. People like to come rub on them and like touch on them.
Mm-hmm.
But like, all right, if this thing's an altar, or
It's an altar.
yeah, like once an altar, always an altar. It
Mm-hmm.
don't matter if it hasn't been used in practice in the last 800, 900 years. Probably closer to 200, 300 years. But
When I looked at that stone in Florida, which is interesting where it's placed too, because it's in the Gulf area. It's on the coast of Florida. It's in an area where these people maybe would have stopped as well on their journey to do a sacrifice. But I didn't get the sense that the people who on the bar or whatever, the local people, they didn't seem to think that this was an altar. So I think it's just a history that hasn't been taught yet, and people need to maybe consider it. But it looks just like that Wabanzi's done.
Well, as we see in modern culture, there's a lot of naivety to this kind of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
we have people doing full blown Lady Gaga, Sam Smith doing full satanic rituals on stage on television, and people are like, "Oh, it's just art, it's just art. There's nothing to it." And I'm like, "All right, cool." So
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, and that's once you start to kind of wake up, once you start to pray for new eyes and new ears, new eyes to see, new ears to hear, I think God will grant you that if you pray for it. He did that for me. Like that was one of my prayers in 2020. I was like, okay, this world is not as it seems. There's a lot behind the curtain happening. There's some very strange mechanics happening behind the society that we live in that's running it, but it's running it in a very esoteric occult way. And I want to know more about it. So I prayed. I was like, Lord, help me to know. I just want to know what's going on, just so I'm not like perpetually psyop. And over time, I think he's given me pieces of the puzzle to work with. So I'm like, yeah, when I do see the Sam Smith, Travis, whatever his name is,
Oh,
the rapper
the
dude,
Travis
Travis
Scott,
Scott,
yeah.
whenever I do see that sort of thing, Madonna, but definitely Lady Gaga, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is an older, this is a more ancient form of a religion that they've brought quietly up to the forefront, and now they're putting it out there for all to see. But this is an ancient cult religion. Some of the stuff that they're doing. That's why you've got these witches in Hollywood behind the scenes. Abramovich, and then that other lady who's at all the rap concerts. Do you know who I'm talking about? The Hollywood witch lady.
Yeah, I know.
She's
The one, she was just,
is it
she just,
Maria? No,
I know who you're talking
you
about.
know who I'm talking
I
about.
can't put a name to it though, but yeah, because she was doing, I heard about it, a couple months, heard about her a couple months ago on, I think I was listening to like Michael Knowles' show or something like that, and he was doing one of his Catholic episodes, and he was talking about her because I think it was Lady Gaga or maybe it was like Cynthia Erivo or something like that was having this camp or something and was doing these lessons and stuff like that, and that lady was there like instructing these people how to do this stuff, like the importance of the motions and the moves and how you sing certain notes at certain frequencies and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I'm looking up this lady's name because she's in a picture with Travis Scott. Um, it's they call her the Hollywood Witch. Uh, I don't know if it's going to come up. I got her picture here, but where's her name at?
Is it?
Michelle Lammy.
Yes. Yep. I'm looking at a picture of her right now.
And it's weird because I'm pretty sure that Michelle Lammy and Maria Abramovich is who's the one who was like doing choreography for Jay Z and Beyonce.
Oh,
They're both the same age, bro, and they're like 80. They're like older than they look.
yeah. Oh, the picture I'm looking at her right now looks like she smoked some serious meth.
Right. Well, yeah, for sure, bro. Maybe something that ends in chrome as well.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so Bigfoot, Hollywood witches. I'm gonna try to bring us back to something we were talking about earlier, where it's like there's a lot of weird stuff over here, and it's almost like it's always been here, and it's almost like some of these people come along and they tap back into it, and I think that that's what Washington did. That's another show for another time, but
Yeah.
Washington, he was a Templar. George Washington was born into the Templars. Some of his ancestors signed the Magna Carta. And Jefferson was friends with Franz Mesmer, who was an occultist. Washington was riding exchanging letters with Mesmer as well. So there's some really crazy occult stuff that's happening over here. And Washington had a lot of the cities built on mound sites.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there was a cult here. And I would say a lot of that was brought over by the Canaanite Phoenicians because they came over, they brought their occult religion with them. They were sorcerers. They built mounds, mound sites, and ancient cities with crazy trigonometry and like everything aligned with the stars. And they obviously had a higher understanding of like math and science, that stuff that ancient men shouldn't have, right? But they were very advanced. But yeah, they built the mounds, and then Washington comes along, Jefferson and Henry Knox and some of those boys, and they decide to build our great American cities right on top of the mound sites. So there's something that was already here that these people are tapping into, man. And all those cities with the weird names along the Mississippi, Cairo, Memphis, locations that would become St. Louis, right? Because that's on an ancient city called Cahokia. All mound sites. Louisville, mound site. Chicago, Wabanzi Stone, right? Built on a mound site, built on an ancient site. Those mounds were put there by these sorcerers, and I'm basing that on what we found in the mounds as well. Like, of course, we found the giants in the mounds, so we know they're connected. But we also found shaman masks and magic wands and crystal balls and mummies and strange obelisks. All that's been found in the mounds or associated with the mounds. I've got an article about 3,000. The article is literally talking about how there were 3,000 mummies found in Kentucky. Mummies,
man.
Mummies, man. So like this place was wild, bro. Especially when you throw Bigfoot in the mix and you throw like little people, like the Tennessee little people in the mix. This place was like Narnia, and then you have all these wizards running around. My buddy has a picture he showed me of a magic wand that was pulled out of a mound, and it's got a mushroom tip on it. It's just wizard stuff, right?
Man.
And what I found is that, I don't mean to like just repeat myself here, but what I found is like these mound sites are directly associated with the Middle East and with some of these ancient practices and some of these ancient groups over there that were there. Let's just be honest. Let's just call it what it is. These were cults, bro. This was a Nephilim cult, bro. So I discovered a lot of stuff with that, man. Like what I'm doing right now is I'm putting everything into like separate piles. So I've got the cult of Koz that's associated with Esau and Petra and the land of Edom. I won't mess with that today. I'll just leave that over there. But what another pile I've got is like the cult of Rapha or the Raphaim, right? They were another word for some of the Nephilim tribes.
Yep.
They were venerating their ancestors and channeling their ancestors. Because if you look, I looked up the word Rapha. I did a search into what it means, and it means it can mean giants, or it can mean like spirits in the underworld, or ancestral spirits of the afterlife. So I think it means both. I think it's about Raphaim is a Nephilim tribe of giants who were also had a cult where they were like trying to talk to their ancestors and get, like divination or like Ouija board stuff, essentially.
Yeah.
Like trying to get a message from the other side. So, they were conducting their business according to what somebody on the other side is telling them, what the spirits are telling them. And then I got another pile, and it's the cult of Ishtar, which seems to be the main source of all the other religious activities associated with all these groups. Whether we're talking about Assyrians, Phoenicians, Canaanites, Minoans, Amorites, they all had a cult of Ishtar going on, goddess worship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which George Washington And those fellows, Jefferson and the likes, they were definitely in the goddess worship. There's a dude named Alan Butler who has a book out on how Washington D.C. is built upon goddess worship. It's in a lot of monuments. It's all over the place in D.C. So, and then on top of all that, this was a bloodline cult. So, and it gets us back into the Nephilim, right? Because they believe their parents to be these watchers who came from heaven. They wanted to preserve that superhuman, hyperhuman bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing, man, that I thought I'd never talk 2 years ago, I would say I'm never talking about that in public. This is all stuff that I would never thought I'd be talking about. And that's where we get into the Rephaim part, because they wanted to, part of their cult and their practices where it seems as if they wanted to become immortal as well. They wanted to deify. And the cult of Ishtar and the cult of the Rephaim ancestral worship and channeling, those two kind of converged into this idea that they had, that they wanted to not die like mortals, they wanted to deify. And you can look at guys like Nimrod in the Bible. It seems like he was trying to do that. Ashurbanipal was trying to do that. Nebuchadnezzar was trying to do that. He said that in some of his old writings, he talks about how he was he basically his love for Ishtar and how he was talking to her a lot. And it seems as if he was trying to deify and become like what some would say Gibberine. Like Nimrod tried to become Gibberine, or did become Gibberine. That seems to entail that Nimrod was not a Nephilim, but he somehow was able to become one. So there's something supernatural happening here where they wanted to tap into eternal life essentially, but not through Christ. They want to do it through occult means. So there's a lot happening here, man. I don't know. Like, hopefully I didn't throw too much at everybody, but
No.
And then there's actually another basket here to add. A lot of these kings, these bloodline kings, the Babylonians in particular, and the Assyrian kings, they had a controlling spirit. And I think we see that today too, where some of these elites, they seem to be controlled by something supernatural, right? A darker power, right?
Oh, 110%.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to do a quick little side tangent thing just because it kept on playing through my head, because we kept on talking about they're trying to achieve eternity, immortality without Christ. Well, let's hit that rewind a little bit. We talked about, all right, they're coming up the Mississippi River. We got that stone in Florida. But when all the conquistadors and all that stuff were coming in, when they were looking for the Fountain of Youth, they were looking in Florida. Now, this could just be something I'm just pulling out my butt, and we can just drop it if something doesn't click. But if they're spending so much time in Florida and they're looking for this immortality, if they did not find it in the Middle East and they heard rumors of it in America or something like that, or they did go back in time, the giants and stuff, they did find a way to do it, and they just hid it in like the Everglades or something like that, man. Like, maybe, I don't know where I'm trying to go with it, but just the whole time you're talking about that, I was just thinking about the Fountain of Youth. And I know a lot of historians and stuff like that have thought, if it was real, it was most likely in Florida, just based off all the expeditions and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I've heard some of this, right? Like where they think that the Gulf of Mexico is the original Fertile Crescent, and stuff like that. Which, honestly, man, I think that there was very magical stuff happening over here for sure. I think the Middle East was the Middle East. I don't think it was. I don't think it was actually over here in the Americas. I think it's kind of where the Bible says it is, because all these places in the Bible, if you read through the Old Testament, you're constantly being hit with like specific names of mountains, specific names of valleys, wadis, towns. All those towns are still there because it's
Yeah.
like an ancient place, so they still maintain those original names. So I think the Middle East was where it says it is, but there was other stuff happening over here, and I think there's maybe something to that, man. I mean, maybe there was some sort of a Garden of Eden type situation over here with some magical stuff.
It, it,
I'm open to it. I'm definitely open to it. And like some of these guys who are like said to be like ascended masters, like Count Saint Germain and people like him, they were really interested in North America and even some of the locations in Florida, and even like back to Christopher Columbus. They say on his ship logs there was a very mysterious figure who accompanied him, who should have been in the logs, but his name wasn't really mentioned like a normal person. It was like he was some sort of a really high up elite or like a secret ambassador for
mhm.
a government or for a king, but that he was maybe one of these ascended master figures, like one of these Count Saint Germain figures, like basically like an occult oracle type of guy who was sent with Columbus to kind of maybe look for some of this stuff on a side quest.
Oh, probably.
Right. And you
I
see that with, I think you see that with Lewis and Clark as well.
Yeah.
Those guys were, they were looking for something that they didn't tell us about. They may have found stuff too that wasn't told to us.
Oh yeah. It's wild, man. And
Yeah.
you know,
Cause like Lewis, let me see if I can get this right. Mayweather Lewis was, I think, answered directly to Washington, and Clark answered directly to Jefferson.
that sounds right.
It's that, or it's vice versa. But basically, they answered directly to two of the most powerful men over here, Washington and Jefferson. And I think it was Jefferson and one of the boys, one of the Lewis and Clark guys, were exchanging letters encrypted. They were writing letters to each other in code so that other people wouldn't know what they're talking about. Why would they do that, right?
Hmm.
Why would Washington and Jefferson have these sort of secret plans worked out with these two explorers? It's because I think they knew that there was magical stuff over here in the first place. I think it's like what we talked about early in the episode where, I've got these old books. The Spanish were coming over here. They were stopping over in Georgia and they were trekking up into Appalachia. That's not an easy trek. Why
Mm-mm.
would they do that? Because they believed there was cities and like ancient civilizations and riches and all kinds of fountain of youth type stuff happening over here.
Yeah.
So Washington and Jefferson probably have some of that same information that the Templars had about what was the real history of North America.
Man,
So I think they had Lewis and Clark out there looking for that stuff, man. I
and
really do.
now you're getting me questioning the whole Louisiana Purchase because everybody talks about that's the dumbest deal in history for France. They gave they gave us half a country for $25 million, and
Mm,
it's like maybe France knew what was on the other side of the country because everybody, Appalachia and all that had already started getting colonized and all that kind of stuff. It
mm.
Even if you want to call it that, I think they was just moving in. I think
Yeah.
the people before them that built the
We
stuff.
got Alaska. We got Alaska for pretty cheap too.
Yeah, I think there's because here's the reality of it. Most of us podcasters, most of us researchers, a lot of us are in the Midwest and the East Coast, and we're on this part of the country. I don't hear besides unless you're a Bigfoot podcaster out of the Pacific Northwest or Southern California. Nobody. I don't hear very many stories coming out of a lot of the area that we obtained during the Louisiana Purchase. So I think there's probably a lot of stuff out there. Not a lot of that land's explored to this day. No,
Wasn't part of Michigan included in that Louisiana Purchase?
the part of Michigan I'm from, I believe so.
Really?
Southwest Michigan. And dude, I would love. I'm not trying to weasel my way into your show to have a conversation with you,
Well, come
but
on with it. What you got? We'll
I
talk
got.
about it.
I've been. I'm self proclaiming myself as the Lake Michigan Triangle dude, and all the high strangeness and stuff that goes there. And there's.
All
I
right.
I feel like I feel like you might have a few more puzzle pieces for that because I don't know if you ever
We'll do it.
the
We'll
Lake
do it,
Michigan
man.
Stonehenge and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
I
man,
think that, bro, I think that definitely fit. That site in particular, I think really fits into this whole story today. And like after the show, man, we'll talk about that and we can set something up. I'd love to do that. Sounds fun. I'd love to do that show. But yeah, that Stonehenge down there that's on the bottom of Lake Michigan, that's pointing back to an older era, these
exactly.
ancient peoples, man. And there's a lot of stuff over here like that, where the stone hinges and the hinges in general were like part of these ancient cults. Like it was wrapped up in this religion as well. So goddess worship and Venus and all that stuff. Who's Ishtar? Yeah, man. And like, I'm thinking about some other stuff right now too, like to do with that show, that you proposed. Like, there's a lot of other stuff up there that would be fun to get into.
I think we'll have some fun, man.
Yeah, yeah. They were this ancient cult of Ishtar uh, was into temple prostitution, and some of the ancient branches off of that cult of Ishtar were doing stuff with like Stonehenge like structures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were obsessed with the solstices, and all those stone hinges align in some type of way with the solstices. And I think the one down there at the bottom of Lake Michigan, probably the same thing. But what they were doing was they were obsessed with the solstices, but also with Easter. And this is where it gets. This is where it gets. I hate to tell people this because I don't want to like burst people's bubble about some of our holidays, but Easter is the goddess Ostara. It's another name for Ostara, and Ostara is the Norse version of Ishtar.
And,
What they would do with some of these zone hinge like places was because it's like 9 months between spring equinox and winter solstice, they would impregnate the temple prostitutes on Easter, and 9 months later sacrifice the newborn on the winter solstice. So, like, the red Easter egg is symbolic of child sacrifice directly associated with this cult of Ishtar. And, like, there's a book I have, it's called The Book of Hiram. And in that, they talk about some of these sites, and one in particular in Northern Ireland, where they excavated the site and they found that these babies were being sacrificed to the cycle of Venus all the way back 4000 BC. Um, and it's clearly a temple to a female goddess.
mm-hmm.
And it's Ishtar. So a lot of, I think some of our sites over here, maybe even that Michigan Stonehenge might have something to do with this.
Yeah, but, I would bet a lot of money on it, man. I would. I ain't got much money, but I bet I bet a lot of what I got on that.
Yeah.
And man, it has been a wild hour and a half, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you so much for coming on and talking this. I knew this was gonna be good, but this blew my expectations out the water. And I really, really appreciate you taking and giving me your time this evening.
Yeah, man. Of course. I appreciate the invite, man. This was a great conversation. It really was. Like, these are some of my favorite kinds. It's just like I didn't know what I was going to talk about necessarily, But I'm glad, like I said, what I said, because that led us down some very interesting rabbit holes, man. Like this was a good one, man. I think it's cool that we got to throw in the Bigfoot stuff and all that too.
Oh,
Um,
oh yeah,
and I can close you out with something. A thought here. This is, and I don't know. Just I was just thinking about something like this. People have come up and said things about how I closed out that biblical hitman show that you saw me on. So I'm thinking I'll just close this one out with a similar thought, because what I was talking about on there was this passage of scripture, right? Um, do you remember back when the Mandalorian came out
yeah,
and everybody was talking about this is the way?
yep.
Yeah, like everybody was saying, it was like all over the internet in like memes and stuff like that. Well, I thought that was interesting. Like I was sitting back watching that kind of play out. And like I'm a big Star Wars fan.
Oh, me too,
And
dude.
like I think of Star Wars in a lot of ways like I think about the stuff we talked about today. Like there's all kinds of mystical, esoteric components to Star Wars,
Mhm.
right? And so when that Mandalorian came out, I'm like, oh, they're doing it again. Star Wars is tapping into this an old mantra, essentially, like an old ancient esoteric principle. But this time, and this is what really perked me up, was like this time it's biblical. So it's Isaiah 20 verse 30, and it says, I got it pulled up here. It says Isaiah 30:20, your teacher, capital T, will not hide himself anymore, but your eyes shall see your teacher. When you turn to the right or you turn to the left, your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it.
Man.
And it's an awesome verse too,
That
right?
is.
Like I think I just happened to sprinkle it in that biblical hitman show, so I wanted to use it again for a closer. And this is like the mantra. I'll say this and then I'll stop. This was like the mantra of Zion, right? Zion is like the esoteric version of Jerusalem in my mind. So it's the immaterial essence of a material city. So if the Israelites were to say, I'm a child of Zion, it carries more spiritual weight than saying I live in Jerusalem.
Mhm.
So, and that whole passage is loaded with that type of stuff. It's just an old mantra that Star Wars brought back to life. Thought it was cool.
Man, look at them doing something decent for once, you know.
Yeah.
I and don't I love me some Star Wars, man. I got me probably close to like $600, $700 worth of lightsabers alone. But they've been messing up. But I'm glad that you showed me some light in it.
That's what we need to, that's what we were talking about, like our podcast studios, man. That's what we need to be putting up behind us is like lightsabers. I think
Dude,
Steven's got one of those
well, mine's right here. Give me two. I gotta flex it. This is gonna be the first time.
Flex it. Fire it up, man.
Man, oh man.
Oh, that thing lights up the whole room.
You know, we were talking about lighting and stuff beforehand. You know, I think I might
Right.
just hang that up right down behind me.
That's. I think so. I
It,
think so. That thing lights up the whole room, man, and it looks cool too.
it was not cheap, man. You know, I bought one for me and my buddy for his birthday because even though we grown men, we still like to fight with lightsabers. So I paid the high dollar from that Custom Sabers website, and they were like it was a lot of money, but
Mm-hmm.
it was worth it, man.
So when you guys fight with those, do you actually strike
Oh yeah,
each other's lights?
we beat the living life out of each other
Oh,
with them.
so it's like it's built to where it can light up and like take a hit.
Oh yeah,
That's crazy.
I'll send you a video I got. Yeah, we. I mean, I'm a big dude. I got some force behind my swings, and we were smacking them hard, and
Yeah.
they hold up.
Well, that's interesting, man. I wonder how long those things stay lit up for.
I haven't changed the batteries in this thing in 3 years.
Wow, man.
So,
It's like a real lightsaber. It's like pretty close.
oh
Pretty
yeah,
close to the real thing, man. That's awesome.
yeah, man.
That's what I'm going to have, man, for my next episode. People are going to see lightsabers hung up back here.
Oh, yes, sir, brother. Thank you again, man. This was awesome. It was fun getting to nerd out in these last little 6 minutes of this. Uh, this was just a great time, and I know this is going to be the first of quite a few conversations that we have on air and off air. And really, really, I do appreciate you. Give time. Time's very valuable, as my buddy Kevin always says. From Where the Weird Ones Are, time is our most valuable thing. So it means a lot when somebody gives their time. Shout out, Kevin. But thank you, man. I
Yeah.
really do appreciate it. And
Thank you, man. No, it was fun. I'm glad you had me on, man. This was a lot of fun. Yeah, we'll do it again, brother. Sounds good.
now, before we get out of here, tell everybody where they can find you and how they can show you some love.
All right. Yeah. You can find me, well, two places actually. I have a Sunday show every Sunday, of course, on Cult of Conspiracy. It's called Conspiracy Garden. So I do that every Sunday, but my main show, the best place to find me is Six Sensory Podcast. Uh, Spotify, YouTube are the two best places, or you can go to Apple or Patreon. And I have an Instagram too. So that's it, man. That's all I got. And again, thanks for having me on, Riley. It's been fun.
Anytime. You're welcome back anytime. Well, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. And because I didn't say it at the beginning of the episode, if you or anybody you know would like to be a guest on the show, if you had encounters with anything or you've done some awesome research such as Tim, and you would just want a place to come and talk about it with no judgment and, get some ideas bouncing off, message me on Instagram at Midwest Mythos or go to my link tree, which is going to be down below, and I have a report and encounter thing. It just sends it straight to my email. It ain't got to be an encounter. Just send it there if you want to say hi to me. Just put it in there and it'll go straight to my email, which is Midwest Mythos Podcast at Outlook.com. You guys know all that stuff. I appreciate you guys taking the time out your week to listen to this. And God bless you all. And I'll see you all next week. Bye.